Callan, 2007. Part 2 and Part 3. Part 2 The individual long term. Part 3 Two-way discussion. Topic 1 to 10.
Topic 1. Senior citizens. Cue card. Describe the oldest person you know. You should say who this person is, how you know this person, what kind of person he or she is, and explain what you think about this person.
The oldest person that I know is my grandfather. He is actually very close to me. When I was young, my father was away a lot in the army, and my grandfather took on the role of my father. He is a very kind gentleman. He is a simple man in that he likes to socialize and drink with his friends at home. He is a carpenter by trade, and one time I was able to work with him when my father asked him to put a floor in our house. Once when I was going on a train trip, he gave me a whole carton of a special kind of candy that I liked. I really love my grandfather, and I believe that he loves me. He has taught me a lot about just being happy with the things that I have to do, and also to take time to enjoy life. I think that I get some of my athletic ability from him, as he knows Kung Fu. I haven't seen my grandfather for a few years, but I know that he is doing well, and I know that he will be happy to see me when I go to visit him. I believe that he grew up in a pretty rough time here in China. Things were a lot more difficult than they are now, but through it all, he always maintained a happy outlook on life. I would like to grow up and be like him in some ways. I wouldn't say that he is perfect in any way, but then, who is?
Part 3. Senior citizens in China. 1. What do people in China do in their retirement years?
A lot of them, especially if they don't have money, don't do a whole lot, and this is a problem here in China. Some of them take care of their grandchildren, and this takes up their time. In the warmer weather, you will see them outside, playing mahjong and Chinese chess.
2. How have the lives of senior citizens in China changed in recent years?
Things are not as hard for the elderly people in China now. They have it easier because their children have pretty good jobs, and so they're taken care of well. They can go to more places and can even drive around with their adult children, something they couldn't do in the past.
3. Would you like to live with the elderly?
I would really love to live with the elderly. They have so much experience and so many stories to tell. You can really learn a lot from them. Of course, you have to be careful around them too, so as not to upset them or cause problems for them.
4. What changes do you think will take place in the future regarding seniors' lives in China?
If China continues to make the kind of progress that it is making, then the seniors' lives will change very much. When you are richer and have money, you can do so many more things. You will see that old people will live longer and have better lives. Of course, in the rural regions and mountainous areas, seniors' lives haven't changed that much and probably won't.
5. Who do you think should take responsibility for looking after the elderly? Should they live with their children, or is it better for them to live in nursing homes?
Of course, children should assume responsibility for their parents. But if the parents' health is pretty bad and their children don't have the time to look after them, then they would have to find someone to look after them. Here in China, the parents live for their children, so it is expected that the children will live for their parents.
6. How do you think modern technology has affected senior citizens in China today?
Seniors are not so much affected by modern technology, other than maybe some forms of transportation. If you mean the internet or computers, I think that most seniors are not that concerned about them. Older values and going at a slower pace are more important to them than fancy gadgets.
Old and young. 7. What are some of the differences in attitude towards life between young and old people in China?
Young people want to see and experience all that they can. Old people are more content to just enjoy the simpler things of life, like getting together with their folks or helping with the childcare. Young people want to travel abroad and make a lot of money and buy a lot of things. Old people are just thinking about the day and what they will do that day, even if it's not so glamorous.
8. What are some of the main problems facing the elderly in China today?
Well, in the city, the elderly are not facing the problems that the ones in the country are. Healthcare is a big issue with all of the sickness that is so prevalent in today's society. Retirement is difficult because the small pensions that the old people get here can hardly sustain them. People here in China have to retire early, so there is the feeling of worthlessness that they have to face. There are some big problems facing the elderly here in China.
9. Do the elderly in China have a lot of influence on their children's and grandchildren's lives?
Oh yes, absolutely. The elderly have a lot of influence in their families' lives. You see, here in China, the family unit is very important and always has been. Our culture, as you know, goes back many years, and parents and grandparents have played an important role in this unit. Respect for fathers and mothers, grandfathers and grandmothers is instilled in each generation.
10. What role do the elderly play in the family?
Well, old people play the role of babysitter for their grandchildren. Another role that they play is moral supporter for the family. They have to cheer for the parents when they get a good job, cheer for the child when he does good in school, and cheer for the family when they make progress together. They also have to be the family counsellors to listen to and give advice to younger members of the family.
11. It seems that grandparents love their grandchildren more than their own sons and daughters. Why do you think that is?
I don't think grandparents love the grandchildren more. They just have more time to play with them, more patience in guiding them, and they don't feel the responsibility for the total well-being of the child 24/7. Plus, seeing the children of their children brings back memories of their younger years. I think it's a great thing. Grandparents give children something special, special memories to cherish and grow up with. I think that grandparents love their grandchildren so much because of how much they also love their children. Topic 2. Children. Cue card. Describe a child you know. You should say how you know him or her, what he or she likes to do, what kind of person he, she is, and explain how you feel about this child.
I would like to tell you about my niece, Mao Mao, who is 7 years old. I stay with her and her family every national holiday, and she is always so delighted to see me. I helped to take care of her after she was born, so I feel very close to her, and we have a good relationship. We like to ride bikes together through our small city and often fly kites. Before going to sleep at night, she always asks me to tell her a story and sing her some songs. I love this child very much because she is always so happy, and I can't help but feel happy too when I'm with her. Although she goes to school now and has to study very hard, she still doesn't worry about life and is very optimistic. Some people think that children are happy only because they are naive. Spending time with Mao Mao has helped me to see that I can have a positive attitude towards my life and be happy even though I am no longer a child and have many responsibilities. Mao Mao trusts her parents to take care of her, so she doesn't have to worry. I should trust that things will work out right also. That way I can be like her, cheerful and happy all the time.
Part 3. Children, Education and Play. 1. How do you think children benefit from playing with toys?
I think it's very important that children have toys to play with to help stimulate a good imagination. Of course, it's very important to give them the right toys. Toy weapons can have an adverse effect on children and might encourage them to be more violent when they grow older. Different toys can help their coordination, abilities, artistic skills, and even inspire them musically. I believe that toys can be very beneficial for children if presented in the correct way and supervised well.
2. What do you think about children playing electronic games?
Electronic games have become a must-have for many of today's children. The games can be very exciting and are highly entertaining. Unfortunately, if children spend most of their time sitting in front of a computer or TV playing games, then they rarely develop good communication skills or learn how to interact with others in real life. I enjoyed playing computer games when I was young, but if there's not a good balance, then it's not good. If I had a child, I would allow him a specific amount of time to play computer games and encourage him, her, to spend more time outdoors playing sports with other people his age. That way he will have good health and also learn how to communicate and interact with his peers.
3. What do you think are the differences between homeschooling and studying in school?
I think there is a very big difference. Homeschooling is more personalized and focused on the individual student's needs, whereas personal attention is not available in public schools due to there being many other students. Studying at home gives the student freedom to go faster in those subjects that he enjoys and to learn more about topics that interest him. Also, studying at home provides the opportunity to get more practical knowledge and experience that you cannot get from school.
4. Why do you think learning theoretical material is emphasized more than learning practical skills?
Learning theoretical material can help you to develop practical skills. I personally feel that there needs to be a balance between theoretical material, or, in other words, knowledge from textbooks, and having hands-on experience and developing more practical skills. Both are needed, and both are important. Right now, the education system is geared to passing exams, so theoretical material is emphasized and taught in classes to help the students get high marks on their exams. Unfortunately, most of this information is not very useful in finding a good job.
5. Do you think the education system in China should be reformed?
Yes, I do think that changes need to happen. The focus of today's education system is on passing exams, but when students graduate from high school or university, they find that the knowledge they gained in school cannot help them get a good job. I suggest that the courses and subjects studied in school be practical as well as informative. Personally speaking, experience is the best teacher, and I think that if the students can get hands-on experience in addition to studying from textbooks, it will give them a more well-rounded education.
Children and families. 6. Who usually disciplines children in Chinese families, the mother or the father?
It all depends on the family. Often it's the father figure who gives the most discipline to the child. However, fathers now are busier with their careers and are often not at home, so the mother is left with the job of disciplining their child. Every child needs good, healthy discipline in order to have a good character. Fathers have this job by nature, though I think it's important that the mother and father work together to have a united discipline standard for their child, so that he/she can feel loved and protected.
7. Do you think it's a good idea for children to aim to be a professional athlete?
No, I think it's a waste of a person's energy and talents. But so long as athletics is promoted by the media, children will want to be sports stars. It's not a bad job compared to many, but most who try it will not succeed. It takes a special kind of person to succeed in athletics. Topic 3. Celebrities. Cue card. Describe a famous person, sports star, film star, etc., whom you admire. You should say who the person is, what the person does, why the person is famous, and explain why you admire this person.
I admire Yao Ming. I know it sounds common, but I think he's a very interesting person, and I like him. Yao Ming is a professional basketball player. He's well over 2 meters tall, but unlike most tall players, he has a lot of skill, not just a height advantage. He's currently playing for the Houston Rockets. Yao is famous for 2 reasons. The first is that he is only the 3rd Chinese player to play in the NBA. And the second is that he's the tallest NBA player, and very good too. It's not just because he's Chinese that he is famous in China, he's also famous in the United States. For his skill, his good sportsmanship, and his warm personality. For him, basketball is a passion and a career, but despite all his fame, he doesn't have a big head, and stays cool, both on court and in front of the camera. I guess that's why I admire him, because he's famous, but not arrogant or proud. He plays well without playing mean, and he is still just a simple man, even though his face is on posters and in advertisements everywhere. There are many stars who become famous and then fall in love with themselves. Fame is passing, so I really like Yao Ming's attitude. To him, it doesn't seem to matter whether he's famous or not, as long as he can keep doing what he loves, basketball.
Part 3. Celebrities in your country. 1. What kind of people become famous these days?
It's mostly musicians, singers, actors and actresses, and athletes who become famous. That's because their careers are all about being seen by many people. They wouldn't have a job if no one watched, so if they do what they do well, they will be famous automatically. Politicians are also famous, but only the ones in top positions, or the ones who interact a lot with the press.
2. Is this different from the kind of achievement that made people famous in the past? In what way?
When compared to the recent past, not really. Sports and the performing arts have always been the more public professions, but I think in times past there were more political and military leaders who were famous in China. I think what has mostly changed is that more people have access to mass media, so fame has become a more cultural interest.
3. How do you think people will become famous in the future?
Probably in the same ways they do today. As long as there is mass media, athletes and performers will become famous. Politicians will also always be famous, because power is something people pay attention to. But maybe the most important people will still be the least known.
Being in the public eye. 4. What are the good things about being famous? Are there any disadvantages?
Being famous can be useful. You can use it to do good or for personal gain, but I think the disadvantages outweigh the advantages. You can never go anywhere in public without having crowds of people follow you, and you will always have cameras in your face. Whatever personal things happen in your life will often become common knowledge to everyone, and being famous isolates you from the real world so that you can't see what's really going on in people's lives.
5. How do the media in your country treat celebrities?
I think it's similar to most places. If someone becomes famous enough, they become a national hero, at least until they do something that offends people. If they do something that is not patriotic, they will quickly lose their popularity. I think it's the same as most places.
6. Why do you think ordinary people are interested in the lives of celebrities?
I think it's because they are bored and feel unhappy and unsatisfied with their own lives. They try to comfort themselves by paying attention to things that happen to celebrities, especially the bad things. Then they can think about something other than their own problems and things they don't like.
7. Do you think celebrities should appear in advertisements?
I don't think so, but I don't think there's anything that can be done to change it. Companies want their products to become famous, so they pay famous people to support it or become associated with it. It's simple psychology. I don't think it's honest, but I also don't think it will change.
8. Some professional athletes are very well paid. Do you think they deserve to be so well paid?
No. Sports are just games, nothing special. I think it's really quite pathetic, actually, but at least they are not doing something harmful in being paid for it, like being a gangster or a smuggler. I don't think they deserve it, but most people who are paid well don't deserve it either. That's life. Topic 4. Adventurous people. Cue card. Describe an adventurous person you know. You should say who the person is, how you know this person, what this person does that is adventurous. Explain how you feel about the risks this person takes.
I'd like to describe my cousin Liu Ying to you, who, in my opinion, is very adventurous. During the time she was studying at university, she was always active in sports and often organized excursions with fellow students to go mountain biking, rock climbing, swimming in rivers, and so on. She even backpacked in Tibet for 2 weeks with only 400 RMB in her pocket. After she graduated with a degree in medicine, she decided that instead of joining a large hospital, which would have guaranteed her a high salary, she joined a volunteer group to Yunnan to help treat sick villagers. She often has to travel to remote mountain villages and is always in danger of having an accident, being caught in terrible weather, or catching the illness herself. I feel very proud of my cousin for taking these risks because it shows that she is selfless and cares more about those around her. Many people are concerned about those who need help, but seldom sacrifice their own time, energy, and money to reach out to them. My cousin has sacrificed her own career to help others, and I believe her memory will live on in the hearts of those she helps. Daring to be different definitely makes my cousin adventurous.
Part 3. Challenging activities. 1. Are adventurous activities popular in China?
Yes, as more and more people in China are looking for new and different ways to spend their free time, the Chinese youth wish to challenge themselves, which often leads them to extreme sports like snowboarding, rollerblading, rock climbing, and trick BMX. The problem they face is that adventurous activities and extreme sports are not always available, or if they are, they're too expensive for the average Chinese to participate. If more facilities and opportunities were available, then I believe these activities would grow in popularity.
2. Why do you think people like adventurous activities?
I think it's for the rush and excitement that comes from challenging yourself and pushing yourself to the limits. Our lives are set in a routine of work or study. Going on an adventure or doing an activity requires risks, tests our strength and capabilities, and gives us a thrill and feeling of triumph as we conquer nature, conquer our fears, and realize our own strength.
3. What do you think are the advantages and possible disadvantages of experiential training?
The advantages and disadvantages all depend on the individual. Two people may do the same thing but come away from it with different views on the experience. Some of the advantages are greater: self-confidence, more awareness of your capabilities and limits, and greater physical dexterity. On the other hand, if you don't take proper precautions, you can have serious accidents or cause someone to get hurt. Some people can be overly confident and take too great of a risk, which can end tragically.
Children's development. Challenges. 4. How do you think parents could bring up their children to be more independent?
Parents should give children more opportunities to make mistakes. If children are too sheltered, protected, or pampered, then they will not have the chance to be independent. Parents need to encourage their children to be responsible. If a parent does not give children the opportunity to do things themselves, even if they can't do them very well, then they will never learn. Everyone has to start somewhere, and we're not born knowing how to take care of ourselves. This information should be taught to children in an environment where it's okay to make mistakes, and which encourages children to learn from them and to try new things.
5. Do children have more freedom today to do what they want than before?
That's hard to say. In general, I would say yes, they do. However, in certain areas, such as education and deciding their career, I think it's the same. Children today have more things than before, and definitely more opportunities to experience things that were not available in the past. So in a way, yes, they do have more freedom. But I think that proper education on how to wisely use that freedom is sadly missing. Children have more freedom but are not responsible, so they often misuse it.
6. Do children today face more challenges than before?
In a way, yes, they do. Today's society is more demanding, and the pressure is greater than ever. Every parent wants their child to be the best, and often they push their child too hard. Children today do not have time to be a child, but instead have the challenge, difficulty, and pressure of getting high grades, having to go to many classes, and getting into good schools. The challenges children face and experience today are very different from the past, but it's hard for me personally to say if they are greater than before. Topic 5. Leaders. Cue card. Describe a leader who you admire, for example, in sports, business, or politics. You should say who this person is, what this person did, has done, that you admire, how you know this person or know about this person, and explain how this leader's qualities impressed you.
One leader that I admire is Bill Gates. Well, what do I admire about Bill? He's really rich. No, just kidding. But that is one of the reasons that I admire him. I think that if you are going to make money and that is your goal, then he is the best role model. His is a success story that you don't see too often. Of course, I use his software and I know that it is not the greatest, but you know what? It is the first, and that says something to me. I also admire him for not staying in school just to stay in school. Once he saw what he wanted to do, he didn't wait around until graduation, but instead grabbed the opportunity while he could and took off with it. Another thing that I admire about him is that he is not content with what he has accomplished, but is still looking for ways to get his product to the world. Now I know that he has enemies and people that say this and that about him, but so has every other visionary that has stood out from the crowd. I hear now that he is giving a lot of his money to charitable organizations, and this just makes me want to say, bravo to him. He's a modern-day hero.
Part 3. Being a leader. 1. Would you like to be a leader?
I would like to because I know that being a leader requires something great of people. Being a leader will help to bring out the best in someone, and I want my best qualities to be apparent in my life. I wish to have children someday, and I know that raising children will require the best leadership. Also, my parents expect me to get a good job, and a high position means having many others working under your authority. I believe this world needs more leaders and a higher standard of leadership.
2. Why don't some people want to be leaders?
The answer to this question has become very clear to me recently, as I must deal with it every day. To be a good leader, one must be a good follower, and there are very few people who can and wish to follow. It is very hard to take orders from others when you are excited about your future and when you have many personal dreams, but we have to learn from others to be able to lead them, and that is the hardest part to learn.
3. Why do we need leaders?
We need leaders because without them life would be chaos. I know when I was a child, if my mother did not teach me lessons, I would have caused many terrible problems. Many people are ignorant when they are young, but many are just as ignorant when they are older. We can see when a society is lacking in leadership, how quickly it falls. Being a good leader is a priceless quality.
Leadership qualities. 4. What are the qualities of a leader? Or, what abilities are needed to be a leader?
I would say a leader needs a lot of dedication and passion for what he is doing. He must be able to convey this in his work. He needs patience to handle people. This leader must also understand those he leads, and like I said above, he must understand what it is like to follow. A leader should be a good example of what he is trying to teach and should follow his own advice.
5. Is it possible to be a good speaker in front of others and to be a good leader, but at the same time not be a good person at the personal level?
Yes, of course. Every day I watch a little TV, and sometimes when I have free time, I will watch movies. Every person that I see on TV knows what he is doing and acts his part, but maybe, inside, he is not at all the character I see him as. My boss at work may lead me and my workmates and treat us well, but does he treat his family well? Do I know for sure that he treats people on the street well? No, I do not know.
6. What are some differences between current leaders and leaders of the past?
The leaders of the past are as varied as they are today, but I think before there was more to being a leader. A long time ago, people could not treat each other badly without suffering themselves or being tried by the law. But these days, I often see very bad occurrences between bosses and their workers, or even governments and their people. In many ways, things should be done as they were before.
Training future leaders. 7. How do people become leaders?
By perseverance and willpower, I think. I also believe that a person who wants to be a good leader must be focused but not stressed. He should know what he wants and give his all for it. But he should never stop caring for those around him, because who would want to follow someone who shows no interest in or appreciation of others? I certainly wouldn't.
8. What can parents do to encourage the development of leadership abilities in their children?
Be a good example. Try their best to understand and not order children around. Never spoil them, but reward them for hard work. The parents should never stop learning from their children. A child who feels ignored by his parents will never grow to full maturity.
9. How do you think leaders of the future will be different to current leaders?
I think they will grow less powerful. The more independence people have, the more they see their own potential, and the harder it will be for them to accept their leaders. Each person in China is pushed to succeed, to reach their full potential, and I think it will be very hard for them to live their life following rules and orders. I think many Chinese will realize that they could be anything and will be discontented with living to serve their leaders. Topic 6. Neighbours. Cue card. Describe one of your neighbours. You should say how long you have known this neighbour, what sort of person they are, how often you see them, and explain what kind of relationship you have with them.
I would like to talk to you about a neighbour that lives next door to me. I just moved into a new apartment, so I didn't know anyone. But this neighbour is an older woman, and she was very friendly when I first met her. She saw me move in all my things, and I think she felt sorry for me, or something, because she offered to buy me some vegetables at the market. She said that she gets them very cheap, and that I would have to pay a lot in the store. At first I told her not to buy anything for me, as I didn't want to bother her, but she insisted and kept assuring me that she wanted to buy vegetables for me. So finally I agreed. I was so surprised when she showed up at my door later as I was arranging my new apartment. She had an armful of onions. She told me that they are very healthy, so I gave her some money for the onions. Then she went home and I continued cleaning and unpacking. Later that day, or the next day, I don't remember, she knocked on my door again. She had made a special dish from her hometown, and she brought me a little bowlful. I thanked her, and she seemed very happy that she could do things for me. I think she is a very motherly type of person, and it makes me feel good that even though I live away from my family, I have a caring person like her as a neighbour.
Part 3. Neighbours. 1. Do you think neighbours are important?
I think neighbours are very important because they are some of the people that you are around every day. If you ever have a problem, you may need to ask a neighbour for help, since they are right nearby. If you are new in a place, you can always ask a neighbour where to find something, and they are also right there if you are in danger, and knowing they are there might make you stronger or less afraid.
2. What are the qualities of a good neighbour?
I think the most important quality of a good neighbour is friendliness. For example, saying hello when you see each other is a good quality. I often speak to my neighbours and try to be friendly, because one day I might be lonely and sad, and if I have been friendly to my neighbours, they will be friendly to me and cheer me up. I also like for my neighbours to be patient and honest. If I make noise and disturb them, I would like them not to get angry, but to just tell me that the noise is bothering them. I also think neighbours should be polite and not disturb each other unnecessarily.
3. Now that most people watch a lot of TV, how do you think this has affected relationships with neighbours?
I think TV watching has had a very bad effect on relationships between neighbours. In the old days, people would go out for a walk in the evening or sit outside their houses. They would make friends and keep up with what was happening in their neighbourhood. But now, many people just plop down in front of the TV in the evening and are couch potatoes. Having this kind of habit keeps people from being able to build close relationships with their neighbours and even members of their own family.
4. Do you think it's important to teach children how to have good relations with neighbours?
I think it is important for children to be polite to neighbours. If your children offend your neighbours, then it is hard for you to have a good relationship with your neighbours, because they will be upset by what your children have done. One thing that is important for children to learn in life is how to relate to others. It is actually a good opportunity for them to learn this in their interactions with the people they live close to.
5. How has the relationship between neighbours changed over the last 20 years?
I think that 20 years ago, people cared more about each other. I think that neighbours saw themselves as a kind of group to help each other, But now, with so much violence and dishonesty in the world today, I think many people are afraid to get involved with others. They don't know if they might be taken advantage of or get in trouble in some way. However, I think that inside, people want to find friends, and they want to love. As Mother Teresa said, "Everyone, no matter what color or creed, wants to love and be loved." I believe that even though we may not be perfect, I think we all would like to live harmoniously with our neighbors and others around us.
Community. 6. What are some of the qualities of a good community?
I think the most important quality of a good community is to be unified. That doesn't mean that every single person has to think exactly the same thing, because that is not possible. But I think they should all have the same ideals. In other words, to be compassionate and concerned about each other, to want to be honest and trustworthy. I know this sounds idealistic, but if you only want to better yourself and live to make yourself rich or more comfortable, you soon find that nothing makes you happy anymore. But if you can incorporate giving into your lifestyle, then you do not lose the joy of living.
7. In China, are there many facilities for improving relations between neighbours?
Well, there are some, but not very many. In the old days, the people in China simply had time, and this helped to facilitate relations between neighbours. Spending time really means the most in almost any relationship. If you spend time to talk or listen, that goes far to build good neighbourly relations. Of course, having a place to go to mix and mingle with people your own age also helps. You can see these facilities springing up here in China. Topic 7. A building in your hometown. Cue card. Describe an important building in your hometown. You should say what it is, what it looks like, what it is used for, and explain why it is important.
Okay, I will tell you about a building in my hometown, Harbin. In a square in downtown Harbin, there is an old Russian Orthodox church. It's called the Sophia Church, probably named after a Saint Sophia. Anyway, it's in a nice square about 100 meters long and 50 meters wide. The church is about 30 or 40 meters high, not very big. It is made of red brick, and the architecture, as I said before, is in the old Russian style. If you've ever seen pictures of the famous church in Moscow, I cannot remember its name, you'll know what it looks like. Of course, it's smaller and less fancy. There is only one large domed roof, and there are maybe 5 or 6 bell towers. I think there are more pigeons inside than people. They charge a lot of money to see the inside. I never went inside, so I don't know what it looks like. I heard that the church was once going to be demolished, but it was built so strong the workers gave up and left it there. Now it is a very famous tourist attraction, and visitors from around China and the world go to see it and take pictures. I think it's important because it is a historical relic and a little peaceful place in the busiest part of the city. It's also part of the city's image. Harbin is an interesting mixture of both old and new. No matter how many skyscrapers and tall apartment buildings are built, it still has an old and friendly flavour, like a visit to your grandparents' home. I hope the church stays there.
Part 3. Old buildings. 1. How do people in China feel about protecting historic buildings?
I think people are beginning to understand the principle that old buildings are sometimes, I don't say always, treasures to be preserved. Today, most people agree that if a building is an important part of history, then it should be well taken care of. But I think what's missing is the protection of the building's atmosphere. It's not enough to just keep the bricks and mortar from falling apart. You also have to be careful you don't ruin its appeal to visitors by having it overly touristy. The Forbidden City here in Beijing is a good example. It's an amazing place, but it's really boring now, because it has no atmosphere. It's so crowded with sellers, tourists, tour guides and shop vendors that you feel like you are just in a shopping street, not an ancient seat of imperial power.
2. Is it important to preserve old buildings?
Well, sometimes. Some old buildings are good to keep as reminders of the past, as long as they remind people what was right or wrong, not just that they existed. Some old buildings are just wasted space. If the building is a symbol of something good or important to remember about the past, then it should be kept. If it's ugly or in a place where something more useful to the people could be built, and it is not very unique or special, then I would say it's better to get rid of it.
3. Do you think an area can benefit from having an interesting historic attraction?
For sure. Most historically important places are tourist attractions. That can be good as tourism benefits the local economy. Also, attractions can give locals something to be proud of and a reason to live and work there. If the historic building or natural wonder is not a major focus or is too neglected and out of touch with the present, then such historic places lend a kind of dignity to an area. They show the past and present are well integrated, which suggests a vision and plan for the future.
4. What do you think will happen to historic buildings in the future?
I think there will be less of them, but the ones that remain will be well preserved. I think a lot of old buildings will become like little islands of the past in an ocean of a modern world. At least that's what I think will happen here in Beijing. I really don't know how historic buildings in other places around China will hold up. Probably a lot of them will lose their uniqueness and beauty to over-tourism. Others will simply fall apart and no one will even remember what they were or what importance they held. That's what time does.
Housing. 5. Compare old houses and modern houses. Which do people prefer to live in?
That's easy. Nearly everyone wants to live in a new house. Whatever appeal old houses have to the artistic or nostalgic mind, that appeal is not as strong as running water, electricity, central heating, and a well-functioning management. It's mostly the older generation, or my parents' generation, that prefers old houses to new. Among my own generation, if we can, nearly all of us will choose to live in a modern apartment.
6. How has housing in China changed compared to your parents' time?
Housing today means tall apartment buildings if you live in a city. In the countryside, I think it's mostly unchanged. Only the objects inside of the houses are different, but the conveniences widely available in modern urban housing are many. Better electricity, plumbing systems and heating. Many of these were rare before.
7. What changes do you think will occur in the future?
If the current trend continues, residential contractors will keep building the same style of buildings until some creativity enters the business. Modern housing in China is all the same, tall identical apartment buildings around a central garden or courtyard, sometimes with a smaller building adjacent or built into the foundation of a few of the taller buildings. It will probably be many years before this trend is reversed. That's too bad, because a lot of what is being built today is wasting space and materials. But I'm hopeful that it will change, even if it takes a while.
8. What factors do people consider when deciding where to live?
Scenery, convenient transport, availability of stores and restaurants, noise or pollution levels nearby. The list goes on and on. Then, of course, there are the actual attributes of the apartment complex they choose, whether it has hot water and central heating, and what ventilation system is used. But in the end, the cost of living is the biggest factor. If one's income is high enough, then he can afford to be choosy about the other factors.
9. How do you think the climate of a place affects the way buildings are constructed? The design.
I don't think climate affects it that much. The outer design of a building can be pretty much the same, whether it's in a temperate, cold or hot climate. It's more the structure that matters. Buildings that are further north are generally built with more insulation and double-pane glass, although if the architect is really good, he will design a building that is in harmony with its surrounding nature and one which makes use of materials and the sun's light to keep the building naturally temperate. This is also good for the environment as it uses less energy to keep it cool or warm. Topic 8. Your childhood room. Cue card. Describe a room you lived in when you were a child. You should say what it looked like, what was in it, what you did in the room. Explain what you liked about the room.
My favourite room was the study room in my house. It had been a landing, but we made it into a study, and that is where I used to do my schoolwork, or any kind of project. The room was not so big, about 5 square meters. It had a bookcase, a table with 4 chairs, a filing cabinet, an entertainment centre with a TV, a large window, and a door leading to our balcony. Because of the window and door, there was plenty of light and fresh air, which made it a very nice place to work. During the school year, that would be my study room. During vacation and after I finished high school, I would use it for reading and other projects. There was also a computer in the room, which I often used to go online and do research. Sometimes I would also chat with my friends on the computer. I liked this room because it was quiet and very sunny. There was a large mango tree outside the window. That was very nice to look at. I always felt very relaxed and calm when I used that room. I also liked to practice on my keyboard in that room.
Part 3. Rooms and Individuality. 1. Do you think children should have their own rooms?
I think that it is good for children to have a chance to share rooms with other siblings. Once they get a little older, many children like to have their own rooms and learn how to take care of them. I think it's good for them to have a chance to have both their own room and a shared room. They learn many good things from each situation.
2. How do children benefit from sharing a room with others?
They learn how to get along with the people they share a room with, and they learn to share their toys, which is very important later in life. They learn to share responsibility in keeping the room clean and neat. They have someone to play with, and don't have to be lonely. Someone who can be a close friend. I think that it is more beneficial for children to share a room than to be by themselves.
3. Do you think people have enough privacy today?
Privacy is often very important. To those people who like privacy, it seems they can never have enough, and they will always want more. Others would rather exchange privacy for more protection. They don't mind having less privacy if they know that in exchange, they don't have to worry about theft or being in danger.
4. What do you think of people who decorate their houses in a very flamboyant manner?
I think that they want to make a statement of their status when they decorate in a colourful and showy way. This may not always be so, as some people may just like the decor. Often the decoration is to show their artistic tastes. Because it is difficult to make a colourful decor match well, having a well-arranged and well-decorated house shows a lot of taste on the part of the owner.
5. Have the rooms in houses changed much compared to the rooms of your parents' youth?
The layout of houses and rooms are pretty standard and stay almost the same. One thing that does change is the material that the furniture is made out of. When my parents were young, almost everything was made out of wood, and sometimes metal. There was rarely anything plastic. Today, much of our furniture is made out of plastic, metal, and other man-made materials.
6. How do you think the climate of a place affects the way buildings are constructed? The design.
Well, in my view, climate has quite a lot to do with the way we design and build our houses. For instance, in places where it snows a lot, you find houses built with a steep roof so that the snow can't settle on and damage it. But in warm climates, the houses are often built with a veranda to keep the sun out of the rooms and to provide a cool place to sit.
7. How do you think rooms will change in the future?
I think that in the future, rooms will change to use more natural materials. There is a great demand for genuine wooden furniture, and it is very stylish to use furniture that looks like the furniture used in the past. I think it's a good change. Other than that, I can't see that much of a change in rooms, really.
Places for public use. 8. What kinds of public places does your hometown have?
In the place where I grew up, there were quite a few small parks and places to stroll around. There were not many playgrounds for children to play in, but my siblings and I liked to run and play games. We were very happy to play in the open area in front of our apartment. There was also a nearby field where we could play football and a track to run around.
9. Do you think it's important to have facilities such as public parks and playgrounds?
I think that it is important to have places that are safe and clean for children to play in. It's good to have large open areas where both children and grown-ups can get good exercise outdoors in a safe environment. If nothing but skyscrapers are being built, then of course children are going to suffer. It is more important to have parks and playgrounds than some of the other facilities that are being built nowadays.
10. Compare public facilities, such as parks, in China today to those of the past.
In the old days, there were not many parks or public facilities, and the ones that were around were often small and unkempt. The plants were not taken care of, and the ground was often dirty and littered. Today, more efforts are put into keeping the parks clean and the area free from litter. The plants are well taken care of, and emphasis is put on making the parks look pretty.
11. In your opinion, how will public facilities change in the future?
I think that there will be larger and nicer parks made in the future. I think the parks will be made available to more people and easier to reach. I also think that there will be more playgrounds and better equipment. You know, in the future there might even be transportation to and from the playgrounds that would include free refreshments. Topic 9. A leisure centre. Cue card. Describe a leisure centre you often go to. You should say what it is and when you go there, what facilities it has, what you do there, and explain why you like this place.
One leisure centre that I really enjoyed going to was located in Tianjin. It was in Teda, actually. It was in a hotel and it was quite nice. One of the facilities that I enjoyed using was the swimming pool. It was indoors and heated and very relaxing. There was also a bowling alley, which along with the bowling had some nice shuffleboard tables that were clean and not too busy. The restaurant was quite nice with good food and wonderful service. I loved to go to the karaoke bar that they had there and sing to my heart's content. I even practiced some English songs like Sounds of Silence and My Heart Will Go On from the movie Titanic. If I felt tired after studying or working all week, I would go to the massage centre, and after just an hour there, I felt on top of the world. Then, of course, there was the jacuzzi and the sauna, to just lay back and let the heat and the water take away the pressures and tension out of this world. Some nights at the restaurant, they would have floor shows with dancing and singing. If I wanted to go out and meet someone or just enjoy a drink, I would go to the disco that they had there and boogie to the wee hours of the morning.
Part 3. Healthy Lifestyle. 1. How do Chinese people like to relax?
I think that one of the most common ways that Chinese people like to relax is to go out to a restaurant with their friends or family and enjoy a good meal together. Another way to relax for them is to simply go out for a walk and enjoy the evening or morning atmosphere. It's an excellent way to relieve stress. Chinese also like to read books, and the youth enjoy going to internet cafes and playing computer games.
2. Do you think most Chinese people lead a healthy lifestyle nowadays?
To be honest, it seems to me that we don't lead a very healthy lifestyle. We work a lot, are under stress, and often have to travel on crowded buses or subways. Sometimes the Chinese men in particular drink a little too much and end up with health problems. The way that we eat is not so good, with many foods being fried with a lot of oil.
3. What do Chinese people think about daily exercise? Is it considered important?
If you ever go by a health club and see all the sophisticated machinery there, one of the most outstanding things you will notice is that it is almost empty. Most Chinese people just don't use that equipment. They don't consider it very important. Now, of course, things are changing a bit, and you do see some Chinese people out jogging or working out, but it is a slow change. With the younger generation, exercise is changing, as you will see lots of young guys out on the basketball court for hours on end.
Leisure and work. 4. Do you think employers should provide recreational facilities for their employees?
It would be a good idea to do this. It would increase productivity because it would increase stamina and mental alertness. Exercise is good for you, and sometimes people working just get weary sitting at their desk for hours at a time. The employers don't have to provide facilities, but it would be in their best interests to do so, and help to lift the spirits of their employees.
5. Should employees be paid overtime for working on the weekend?
Well, if they didn't get paid, there might be a mini revolution. The weekends are very special to most people, and to have to work is a sacrifice as it is, and not to get paid would add insult to injury. On the other side of the coin, if the reason that they are working is that they didn't get the work done during the week, then they should come in of their own accord to finish this work, and the company shouldn't have to pay for this.
6. How do you think a person can find a balance between the time spent at work and the time spent on leisure?
They say all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Well, the same holds true in reverse. All play and no work makes Jack a very poor boy. Each has to be in its own place, a time to work and a time to enjoy life. Even if you enjoy your work, you should pull yourself away from it in order to have the proper balance in your life. Sometimes you just have to stop whatever you are doing, whether work or play, and do the opposite to have a healthy life. Many people these days are literally dying of overwork, while other people are wandering around day after day with nothing to do. It is a tough thing to do, but you have to discipline yourself to work and then play. Topic 10. A hotel. Cue card. Describe a hotel you stayed at or have seen. You should say what the name of the hotel was, where it was, what facilities it had, and explain your impressions of this hotel.
There was a very nice hotel that I used to frequent called the Victory Hotel. It was located in Tanggu, Tianjin, on the way to Teda. It was close to a market, so if you felt like making yourself something to eat instead of going to the cafeteria, then you could just take a stroll, buy what you want, and go back to your room and eat it. Each room at the hotel had a nice kitchen that contained a stove and other basic utilities needed for a homey kitchen. The hotel also had excellent swimming facilities. The swimming pool wasn't very large, but it was kept clean all year round and was heated to perfection in the winter. This was one of my favorite places in the entire hotel. The hotel also had a very good bowling alley. This was another of my favorite places to hang out. On one floor there was even a disco and a spa. This hotel had virtually everything. Although I never got a very good look at the cafeteria, I was always told that it served good food and that all of the waiters and waitresses were very kind and helpful. I personally liked this hotel and enjoyed staying there. All of the maids and cleaning staff were very cheerful, and the hotel carried an air of joy and happiness. I would recommend this hotel to everyone, even more than the Hilton or Holiday Inn.
Part 3. Tourism. 1. Is tourism an important industry in China?
In my opinion, tourism is very big in China. I believe that it is very important to the Chinese economy. If it weren't for tourism, China would have to look for other ways to bring money into the country. Tourism not only helps to bring in money, but also helps to influence and modernize China.
2. How has tourism contributed to the development of your hometown, or the place where you live now, or China?
Tourism has helped by making people more aware of the value of old buildings and famous places. Because of the attraction of these places, there is more of an effort to preserve and improve them. There is also more development to make tourists and travelers more comfortable. The hotels and hostels are improving their standards, and the restaurants are learning to cater to Westerners.
3. Has tourism had any bad effects on your hometown, or the place where you live now?
Because of the rapid development and the expansion of cities, tourism will force many people to move out of their old, lower-priced homes. These people will have to find new, often more expensive apartments and houses. This may be difficult for them, and they may not be able to afford the new housing. Also, the construction workers who build new buildings and roads will be out of work when they are completed. This will cause a rise in unemployment.
Accommodation when travelling. 4. When people are travelling away from home, what choices do they have for places to stay? What kinds of hotels does China have?
There are many very nice hotels all around China. Almost every city will have at least one of the more well-known international hotels. There are also local hotels that are cheaper and economical. Then there are hostels and dorms where you can stay for a very low price for a longer time.
5. How have hotels changed, improved in recent years, or compared to the past?
I think the standard of hotels has risen in general. The standard hotel has nicer facilities and often more options as far as rooms and prices go. They are now put in more convenient places and also well distributed around the city. Hotel service has also gotten much better, as employees are aware of how important it is to treat guests well.
6. What facilities should a good hotel have?
I think a good hotel should have everything that people need to stay for a while. It should have a restaurant or some place where the people staying there could get food easily. It should have a few places for recreation and exercise, such as a gym, swimming pool, and sports equipment room. It should also have a business center with internet access. international phone service, fax, printer, photocopier, and computer.
7. What could be done to improve the environment, e.g. the appearance, in some hotels?
The hotels should be nicely and tastefully decorated. They should have a simple, efficient layout that does not confuse the guests. The outside should be clean, and the outside appearance should match the inside decor. It also would be an improvement to make sure that there are plenty of plants and trees.
8. What kind of people, what kind of personal qualities, are best suited to work in a hotel?
The most important qualities for working in a hotel are friendliness and consideration. When the staff of a hotel is friendly and considerate, the guests are well taken care of and happy. It is also important for the staff to be neat and clean. This will help them to make their work area and the hotel clean for the guests.
9. What can hotel service people, hotel employees, do to help tourists?
The most important thing is for the hotel employees to be able to understand the tourists and guests. Efforts should be made to make sure that most of the hotel personnel have at least a basic knowledge of English. It is also nice to have a few people who speak other common languages, or languages that are spoken by people who frequent the hotel. It is good to also be able to give directions to nearby tourist spots, or have a service to help tourists get to more distant ones.